make sure that you're clear on what you want that end result to be. Okay? And make sure you're in agreement with the other party as to what that end result should look like. Because there have been plenty of horror stories of people entering into agreements where one person had one assumption. We know how dangerous that word is. One person had one assumption as to how the end result would turn out, and the other party had a completely different idea of what the end result would be. Good evening. Happy Wednesday, my winners and goal getters. Welcome to this week's edition of the Getting the Win Show. I'm your host, Mellissa T, the procrastination bully. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time, welcome. My mission with this show is to help women who've navigated a trauma or transition find healing through writing and publishing their first book, or find healing through writing their next book. Some of these folks have more than one book in them, and they likely have published a first book already. But I'm here to guide them through the process of healing through writing their book. And in today's episode, I want to ask a question to make you think. When's the last time you came into some kind of arrangement, a collaboration, some kind of work agreement or a work idea, really, and you didn't iron out the details before you got started? Maybe you guys were super excited. You came up with a concept and you dove straight in. What was the end result of that? Let me know in the comments. Type it in the comments the last time that's happened to you. What did you get what you were after? Or did you end up taking a detour? Because the purpose of this episode is to talk about the importance of agreement. The importance of agreement. But before I get into that, please hit that like button on this one. Make sure to let the algorithm do its thing. Hit subscribe on this if you're watching on YouTube at Getting the Win. Hit that subscribe button and click that bell icon for me. I appreciate you. That way, this video and all the videos on the channel can reach more women who are seeking healing for their trauma or transition. They've been through the transformation already, but perhaps they haven't fully processed it and healed. Please help me let the algo do its thing. So hit like on this video and share it with your peoples. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Getting the Win. Appreciate you. Also, the other thing I'm going to mention very quickly before I get into this topic is the author activation weekend that is coming up in the rolling hills of Tennessee, the rolling, beautiful green hills of Tennessee, coming up April 23rd to 26th, if you choose the VIP option. So go to myauthorweekend.com. If that's something that's interesting to you, perhaps you don't have the patience to watch through all of my YouTube videos. Perhaps you want an author sprint, something where you're in the room with me and other women who get it, who are on the same journey as you, and have me handhold you, not only myself, but my fellow author coaches in the room, to hold your hand and guide you through the process of writing. We can get you that rough draft done in a single weekend. If you're somebody that's results driven, or you want that personal hand holding that is in real time and quick, My Author Weekend, go to myauthorweekend.com to register. And I recommend that VIP option because all of the speakers are slated for Thursday, which is the VIP day. And in addition to hearing all the VIP talks, you get to bring a bestie, a +1, for free. It can be an accountability buddy, somebody else you know that needs to get their book done. It can be your partner. It can be a business partner. But you get to bring a bestie for free. And those spots are running out. There are only 2 VIP spots left. So be sure to book your spot today, myauthorweekend.com. Now let's get into today's episode. So agreement, all right? This is a conversation that was recently covered in the mastermind that I'm a part of. Shout out to the UOU mastermind community, and shout out to L. David Harris, who has been a guest on this show several times. But we had the honor of having a conversation collectively about the power of agreements. And he made an important point about the sequence as it relates to agreement. When you're doing any collaboration, when you're coming up with an idea, it can even be a service agreement where somebody is hiring you to do their services, or you're hiring somebody else. Agreement is powerful and highly important. And the point that he made that blew my mind is that the agreement has to happen first before anything else. Do you make the agreement with the person? Are you in agreement with yourself? Are you in agreement with what the results are? So let's break those things down. First order of business. Are you in agreement with yourself about this arrangement, this idea, this concept, this potential? What do you want out of the thing? Make sure you're 100% honest with yourself about that. Today's episode can be applied to a book in terms of what you expect to write the book about, what your agreement is with yourself in terms of what you want the book to do later on down the line. But you can apply this to any other thing in your life because, of course, we're not meant to exist in a vacuum. So start there. Make sure you're in agreement with yourself with any decision. Why do you want the results you want? What are the results you want? And is that desire in alignment with your values? Have you made clear to yourself what your values are? Most of us are living on autopilot, if we're being honest, right? So have you made clear to yourself what your core values are? What is your personal North Star? Put that in the comments too if you want to share those with our audience so we can all sharpen each other accordingly. What is your North Star? What are your core values? Mine I can share with you. I came up with an acronym called FAST. And this applies to my business and my personal life. And some of the letters in this acronym are double layered, and that's okay. They all apply. So mine is FAST. I shared in a short recently that my whole life I've been billed as slow, like considered slow in speed, not cognitively. I'm pretty sharp cognitively. But speed-wise, I've always been considered slow until I learned what my behavior style is, the way that I'm wired. I'm wired to be methodical and think through things and look at things with a fine-tooth comb. I'm detail-oriented. You have to slow that speed down in order to catch all the holes and errors and blind spots, right? That's why I'm so good at editing people's books. I catch the errors faster than most people would. But my acronym is FAST. The F stands for faith and freedom. The A is accountability. The S is safety. That one is the loudest one for me. I am so big on being a safe space for the people who interact with me. And so far, that's been the case. Even the ones that did me wrong, like I have always been a safe space for people. So that's the S. And the T is truth and transformation. Truth and transformation. And if you follow what I mentioned about my mission with this show, all of that applies. Since I'm a person of faith, my faith comes out in the things that I share. And you'll hear it in this episode too. This episode is no exception. Faith and freedom. I help women find healing through writing and publishing their first book. Healing is a form of freedom, right? Accountability. That was how this channel began in the first place. I'm the procrastination bully, right? Like I'm helping people beat procrastination. In this case now, beating procrastination as it relates to their book. Safety. I talk about topics on this channel in a way that is more of a guide. I'm less of the coach that is badgering you and more of a guide. Somebody that's walking alongside you and talking you through the thing, whatever that obstacle is, whatever that portion of the mountain is that we're climbing together. Okay. And then truth, obviously, we got to be honest. We got to be transparent. And that leads to transformation, which is the whole goal. Healing is a form of transformation. The book that you produce should cause transformation in other people's lives. Believe it or not, that is the true evidence of learning. We tend to take that word learning for granted. Like, yeah, I just read something, I learned something new. No. You acquired new information. We do that all the time. We consume content. We acquire tons of new information. The true evidence that you have learned something is transformation. When your behavior changes, that is evidence that you've learned a thing. And learning something usually requires iteration or experience. The common idea is 10,000 hours. And I recently learned of a tweak. It's not just 10,000 hours at something, because you can give 10,000 hours to something and still be fruitless. Like it can still not be that great. It's 10,000 hours applied, 10,000 iterations, 10,000 times when you tried something different and saw results. That's the way to look at the 10,000 hour thing. The 10,000 hours will then lead to transformation, because mastery of anything is the application of the scientific method. You have a hypothesis, you experiment, you find the result, you reiterate, you find the result, and you keep doing that until you reach the conclusion, meaning the conclusion that favors your hypothesis, or if the result is a hard counter to your hypothesis. Maybe you thought something was going to turn out a certain way, and you realize by the very end of it, you're like, oh, what I was hoping for actually is not possible. Like, this is something that these are two things that just don't go together. Okay. So transformation, learning leads to transformation, changed behavior. You do something different in your life. So those are my core values. That's my North Star, that FAST acronym. Okay. And hey, I learned some lessons. Like, I did the same thing. I've done several arrangements where I jumped in without fully agreeing with myself, because we're still on this first one, agreeing with yourself. Jumped into a couple of things where I didn't fully agree with myself and ended up with, can't say buyer's remorse because I didn't pay for it necessarily, but I invested my time and there was definitely remorse. So make sure you're in agreement with yourself first. And in order to do that, you have to already be clear on what your core values are. Be clear on what your North Star is, regardless of context. With your book, with your business, on the job, if you have a 9 to 5, in your relationships, what is your North Star? What are your core values? What are your non-negotiables? Be in agreement with yourself. The next thing, make sure that you're clear on what you want that end result to be. Okay? And make sure you're in agreement with the other party as to what that end result should look like. Because there have been plenty of horror stories of people entering into agreements where one person had one assumption. We know how dangerous that word is. One person had one assumption as to how the end result would turn out, and the other party had a completely different idea of what the end result would be. And they end up parting ways. And either the project doesn't finish or the project does get finished and it's a mess afterward. Like, the project's done, but then the relationship is broken and a total mess. Is that you? Have you experienced that? Communicating upfront is the key to that. Being clear on what your desired end result is. And then hearing from the other party what their expectations of the end result is going to make a difference. Because then if you guys disagree, like, you can talk through it and work that out, or reach the mutual conclusion that, oh, wait, the two of us are probably not the best fit for this. Like, I should probably go to somebody else for this. Or if it's the other person's idea, like, nah, I'm not the best fit for this. Like, you're going to need to find somebody else to do that. And then if you know somebody, like, refer them. And that is a way that you can provide value. I try my best to do that all the time now. Previously, when I say previously, I mean probably a decade ago, my answer would have just been, sorry, I can't help you. But in these last 3 years, after I got my voice back and learned how to be of value to people consciously, intentionally. Now I make sure if I know something, I offer that along with my no. Like, all right, I'm not the fit, but here's this person. I'm not a fit, but check out this website. Something. That way the person's not walking away empty handed. Don't get me wrong, there might be times when that has to be the move. We don't all know everything. Or if the other party is just unsavory, I'll use that word. Just to not use something colorful. If the person just happens to be unsavory and you have to part ways, then it's perfectly okay to not let it be the hard no and keep it pushing. It's all right. Like you're not doing them a disservice by leaving it at no. Sometimes that is what it takes. Okay. So being in agreement with yourself. Next, being in agreement with the person so that you guys are clear, or people like the party being in alignment and agreement with the other party so that all minds and hearts are clear on what the end result will be. Make sure to set the expectations. Last episode, I talked about the consequences of surrendering our voice when we choose not to say something, even though we see it. That can be detrimental to your health, to the other person's well-being, to both of you, like to both parties. I cannot stress that enough. Like, use your voice. You have it. Use your no if you need to. You have it. It is available to you. And on the flip side, here's a quick bonus thing on that subject. Don't be afraid of the word no. You guys hear me, if you've been rocking with me for a while, you hear me quote Chris Voss all the time from Never Split the Difference. It was that book that helped me understand that, contrary to most sales teachings that teach you to get to a yes as quickly as possible and as often as possible in order to train the person's brain to keep saying yes, including your close, Chris Voss is like, actually, no. Get to know as fast as possible, because then that can rule out who or what is not a fit. Get to know as fast as possible. That way you can iterate and come up with solutions to get to a yes that makes sense. Instead of training somebody's brain to keep saying yes, and then they buy your thing and end up with buyer's remorse or get frustrated, get to the no first so you can get clear. You can get clarity. Be strategic. That's a powerful thing. So don't be afraid of a no. Like, okay, I'm clear now. Like, I know what does not work. Thomas Edison has that, famous quote, like, I didn't come up with 1,000 ways to invent the light bulb. I found 999 ways that it didn't work, like how to not make one, right? Sometimes the no is more beneficial. The no is more character building. So come into agreement with the person. Then the next thing would be to make your investment or your commitment. And both things are required. Your agreement with the other party, as well as your agreement with the investment or with your commitment to the thing. Or else you're going to end up with the remorse. In one of my recent situations, this is a couple years ago now, we're in 2026, time flew. It's already been 2 years. This is crazy. 2 years ago, I entered into a ghostwriting agreement, but it was verbal. And I made the mistake of not putting that agreement in writing. And we dove headfirst into the work. And the client got the deliverable. The client got the draft of the ghostwritten book. And then when I reached the end and had the conversation about the money and drafted the contract, then the person was hit with sticker shock. That's on me because I didn't make clear in the beginning how much it would cost for a book to be ghostwritten. Ghostwriting a book is an investment because essentially you are handing off the duty and responsibility of the actual writing of the content to that other person. They're simply recording your voice, learning you, which by the way is extra effort. Like this is part of the value. This is part of why ghostwriting is a deeper investment. It's a higher cost. The person is taking the time to learn you, learn your voice, learn your speech patterns, learn your personality. And then they're also writing the content on your behalf and writing it in a way to ensure that it sounds the most like you as possible. It's a deep investment. There are some ghostwriting services that are out there now that are four figures, $5,000 and $6,000. I'm going to put an asterisk on that. Be careful. The floor for a quality ghostwriter, the industry floor, if you want somebody serious about their craft, somebody who is experienced in their craft, is $10K. So if you ever want to get a ghostwriter, don't be too cheap about it. Like really consider that decision. But in my case, I made the mistake of not making that clear up front. And as a result, the project, even though the deliverable was delivered, there's still an open loop. I still haven't gotten paid yet. I'm not tripping on it. Like I already know that was a misfire on my part. Like I didn't express that clearly at the beginning. But I'm sure you have a story like that in your own life where perhaps you weren't clear up front about something, or perhaps you didn't express your expectation clearly enough or in a way that the other party would be aware of what your expectation is. Maybe you were optimistic and you assume they would have the same core values that you do. I heard one story from a friend of mine during that conversation. That was a real estate conversation. She and the other person, it was a joint venture. Her core value is excellence. Like me, she's grounds crew. Like we just gonna do things excellent regardless, right? The other person, on the other hand, was, they were kind of coming up in the streets. They had that hustle mentality. Nothing wrong with the hustle mentality, but that person's sense of excellence, unfortunately, was not there. And my friend explained their whole arrangement fell apart. The project was never even completed. They had to part ways. They were divergent on what their values were. And it was because that wasn't communicated at the start. Okay? So be in 100% agreement with yourself before you do anything. Know what your core values are and what your North Star is. Come into agreement with the other party. Make sure all expectations are on the table, clarified, and worked through if there was any disagreement. Make sure there is full agreement from all parties on what the end result is going to be. And make sure that you are in agreement with what your investment or your commitment is going to be. That was the third thing. Make sure you're in agreement with what the investment is and what your commitment is. Another friend of mine in the call shared an example of a business venture he went into. This wasn't real estate. He formed a particular company and he entered into a joint venture with somebody. And he was transparent with us and said he wasn't invested in the other person. He was invested in the end result. So there wasn't agreement all the way across the board. He was focusing on the result, the money to be made. He wasn't fully in agreement or in alignment with the other person. He just expected the other person to do the work that they promised. And that's not how it turned out. He ended up losing his investment. He lost more than what he invested. This is the importance of agreement. And the agreement has to be applied all the way across the board. Your agreement with the other party, your agreement with yourself and what your core values are, and your agreement to the commitment itself, your agreement to the investment itself. How does this apply to the book thing? Since we are a show that talks about books, again, you start with yourself. And then as it relates to your agreement with the other party, in this case, as an author, that other party would be your reader, your target reader. You have to get clear on what your target reader needs because they have some expectations when they pick up your book. What problem is your book solving for them? And you have to make sure that you're clear on what that problem is that you're solving so that you maintain the solution throughout the entire book. We have to make sure that you don't divert from your core message as the book continues, because people will put it down. Most people don't read whole books anyway. They skim. They look for highlights and solutions based on what they need. The table of contents is your best friend as it relates to that. I'll be teaching on that during the author activation weekend. So again, shameless plug, myauthorweekend.com if that's something you're interested in, because I'm going to be hammering that in the room. And by the way, virtual tickets will be available. As of this viewing, as you're watching this video right now, virtual tickets are also available now, officially. If you can't make the trip, or can we be real, as of this recording, if travel is dreadful for you, you know what I'm talking about. I get it. I don't want to put anybody through needless dread right now in terms of traveling to Tennessee. If you can make it there with that VIP ticket, by all means, do that. But if it's a major concern for you and it will be a hindrance, it will do more harm than good, then I got you. The virtual ticket is available for you. So myauthorweekend.com. And then lastly, as it relates to the book, that last agreement that I mentioned, your agreement in the investment, your agreement in the commitment. And for you as the author, it's the creation of the book itself. Your agreement to commit to the process. And if you've been following me, I demystify the process. I simplify it. I'll have the link in the description to the playlist where I break down my process. It's a repeatable system that applies to any genre. I got you. So whether you're in the room with me for the author activation weekend, or you attend virtually, or you choose to consume my content on YouTube until you have that investment ready, I got you. Check the description, check the show notes. It's all there. But those are the three things required in terms of agreement in any context, as it relates to your book, as it relates to your relationships, as it relates to business transactions, as it relates to your 9-to-5. Agree with yourself before anything. Have your core values, your non-negotiables. Agree with the other party. Make sure all expectations are crystal clear and worked through. And then the agreement to the investment itself, whatever the process is going to be, whatever the cost is, whatever effort it's going to take to get the result. Make sure everyone is in agreement with that too. Apply those three things, and your decision-making will be much easier. And of course, put everything in writing. I'd be remiss to not say that, right? Put everything in writing. Put everything in writing. I'll give a brief example as we wrap up here about not being clear in relationships. I just recently had to clarify one, because while the service part is in writing, I didn't express upfront in a crystal clear way what my expectation was for our relationship while the service was being rendered. And I recently had to clarify that verbally and bluntly. I had to go into my pilot on this one. The grounds crew was not being heard. Because as grounds crew, we value steadiness. We don't like to rock the boat. We don't like losing relationships and all that. The pilot, on the other hand, is about results and getting the results as quickly as possible. I had to do that in this case. I had to get crystal clear with the person. This is what it is. And going forward, this is what it will be. We are not negotiating. I had to do that. Should I have had to? Not necessarily. However, because I failed to do it up front, I ended up having to do it on this end. And things have gotten a bit awkward. So to prevent stuff like that, make sure you're clear with yourself. And that was my issue with this one too. I was not crystal clear with myself. So make sure you're crystal clear with yourself. Have your agreement with yourself. Have your agreement with the other party on what to expect. And then have your agreement with the investment or the commitment to the deliverable, to the project, to the process. That streamlines your decision-making process. That eliminates any imposter syndrome. That eliminates any confusion and it minimizes drama. Because again, as Chris Voss teaches, the point is to get to the no as quickly as possible. So if you are crystal clear with yourself and you've made clear to the other person up front that, hey, this thing over here is a hard no, I cannot provide this. And then they're like, well, I don't like that. I need to find somebody else. Better for you. That's less of a time investment. You just committed the amount of time to have the conversation, and that was the end of it. You can now dedicate your time to more productive things, to more fruitful things, perhaps to that book that's inside you, right? Now, to that point, I recommend be sure to subscribe here if you're watching on YouTube at Getting the Win. If you're glimpsing this on the Spotify there, that platform, Getting the Win Show, subscribe there. Like, tune in every single Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Okay? You can follow me on Instagram, Pinterest, and Threads at The Getting the Win Show, at Getting the Win Show. I keep adding the at Getting the Win Show. Okay? Instagram, Pinterest, and Threads. You can follow me there. And if you have serious inquiries, you want to hire me to speak, you want to hire me for one-on-one author coaching, I am available. You can find me on LinkedIn at Mellissa Thomas. That is Mellissa with 2 L's and 2 S's. All right? Spelled the British way. So, Mellissa Thomas on LinkedIn. But in the meantime and between time, I pray you have a productive rest of your Wednesday and a great and productive rest of your week. Peace.